All right, welcome to Live, Lead, and In Between, a podcast for leaders who want to be better at leading in life and everywhere in between. My name is Travis Jones, and I am the host for this podcast, and it is my honor to be here doing this podcast today. It's a little outside of the norm. Normally, I put out about 2 podcasts a month, and this month I had a little extra time, so I thought I'd put out a third for this month. And I'll just say, like I said, typically I only put out 2 because of the speed of my life. With having 2 toddlers and a teenager and all that goes with that, work life, and my wife's work, all that stuff. So today I had a little extra time. Thought I would get on here and talk a little bit about a thought I've been having. Even during the last podcast, the thought was running in the background of my mind, and then I've had some circumstantial experiences that have validated the conversation that I wanted to actually throw out there, and that is on the thought of authority, and really positional versus given authority. Again, I've had some experiences and as of late that actually have kind of brought that to the forefront of my mind. And so I thought, well, let's put it out there for a conversation, because authority in leadership is a big deal. Because if someone doesn't believe you have the authority to be in that position, then a lot of times they're going to work against you or just won't work with you at all and completely ignore you, right? So there is a difference between positional authority and given authority. Now, there may be other definitions of authority out there, but those are the 2 I want to focus on. Positional authority would be simply having a position of authority, of oversight over a particular area or subject matter, like a subject matter expert, so to speak. So that's positional authority. Like I serve at a church where I am the minister of spiritual growth and development, which is the discipleship mechanism there, and it has the position of authority over that area. And under that umbrella, I also interact with the children's ministry, student ministry, things like that. So that's positional authority. Now, the other side of that coin is given authority. And given authority is when a person or individual or group actually gives authority over to you because, well, we'll get to the because in a minute, but they give authority over to you over a subject matter or an area of oversight. You have given authority. They trust you, and they give you that authority. And those are 2 wildly different things. They both have authority in the definition, but the outcomes of those are phenomenally different. You can have positional authority and given authority together, which is awesome. You can move mountains with that. Or you can have just positional and not given. Or you can have just given and not positional. And so I want to work through a little bit of that. I want to work through the danger in having it like that and the different mechanisms and how it flows either way and some of my experiences with that. I also want to talk about like how to flow into given authority and how to get there towards the end here. And there are 4 different ways I think you get there in my experience. So let's talk for a little bit about the circumstances and some of the things that have happened that kind of have thrown that into my mind, right? So initially I was talking to myself, my own internal dialogue when I was thinking about authority, about a time when I was a children's pastor, and I served as a children's pastor for about 5 years. And enjoyed it. It was great. Had an awesome team of people. They were pretty strong team of people. And, we served at I would say a medium-sized church, but the children's ministry, we were fairly healthy, or so I thought. And as the children's pastor, I had, been recruiting people and developing people. And it turned out, hindsight, because hindsight's always 20/20, it turned out that I had the position of authority as a children's pastor, but somewhere along the way, when I recruited a couple different people, there was another person that in the ministry that had a little more charismatic than me, had some different giftings and whatnot, was a volunteer, but that person wound up having the given authority within the children's ministry team. And it worked out for a short amount of time, but like all things like that, if you have a positional authority and you have someone else that's not in the position that has given, sometimes those can do this. And like I said, it worked out for a little bit, and we seemed to be clicking. And then I would find out a little bit later that it wasn't as good as I thought it was for the reasons I thought it was. And it had largely to do with that separation of, there was positional authority on my end with the majority of people, and I only had given authority with a couple of them. and then given authority on this other person's end. And the interesting thing, the person with the given authority, I had given authority with them, right? They had given me the authority. So, but at any rate, there were two different dynamics. There was a dichotomy that was actually set up, which actually set up a divergence a little bit in the ministry. But so that was something I was thinking about in hindsight, and that was some years ago. But the actual circumstance that actually kind of fueled this in me was I was delivering, or I was talking to a group of people at the church I serve I was asking them to consider doing something a little uncomfortable and difficult for their group. And in that, the subject of small groups came up, and I have oversight over that area of ministry positionally. And I have had a hard time getting traction in that area for some odd reason. And as I was talking about it, I made the statement, not everyone needs a small group. And when I said that, there was a person who was there, and I've known this person for 7 years. Awesome person, awesome guy. Nothing bad to say about the guy, but he verbally just said, "I disagree," and I said, "Okay, right." And I started, kind of elaborating a little bit, and then he came back with something else, and it wasn't the time or place for that to happen. Again, it wasn't a negative interaction, but it showed me that there was a difference in thought process, and I think I've always known that thought process was there, but I thought, and after I'd had a moment to process, I realized that I have the position of authority when it comes to small groups and things like that. But this person has had such a dramatic experience or a dynamic experience in their walk with small groups that experience for them trumps my authority positionally. And so they have not given me authority over that, and when it comes to how they perceive and how they interact with me. And I thought, okay, well, I've got to work on changing that because this person's a really strong proponent of groups, and I need that person. We all need to be pulling in the same direction. And if you have someone that has positional authority and you have someone else that has given authority, then sometimes you're pulling in the same direction, but other times you can kind of be pulling in a similar direction, but not the same. And over time, you wind up diverging or dividing, or there's division. All right, I should say in that. But so there's danger in that. And there's also awkwardness in a little bit of that. The awkwardness comes if you're in a position of authority and you don't have given authority. When I first started at the church I served at, I came out of another church. I was the associate pastor. I'd been there for some time, and I had developed both positional authority and given authority with folks. When I started at the place I am now, I stepped into a position of authority. Actually, I stepped into a position that had not existed at the church prior, so I got to blaze a trail. But I stepped into this position of authority, and I realized very quickly that though I had the position, I didn't have the given authority. People were waiting to see kind of what I was about and who I was and what I had to say and whether it made sense before they were going to step into that. And it took a couple years because immediately when I started talking about things, people would like the ideas of it, but when I would move to start implementing them, I would catch this kind of, back and forth. It would kind of, I would run into walls left and right. And I realized that was because I didn't have the given authority yet. I remember the day, though, that shifted when I had the given authority, and it shifted so subtly. I was talking to someone, and I made a recommendation about the particular thing that they were interacting with that had to do with my area of oversight, and they took that and did it. And up to this point, I had just been able to talk and speak to it without seeing anybody actually take what I was saying to heart. And at that moment, it shifted for me, and I began to gain a little ground and traction with some things like that. So, but up until then, it was awkward. It was awkward because I had the position of authority, but I didn't have the given authority, and it took some time. Now, so here's the question. Here's the question for every leader out there who's in a position of authority. The position of authority is great, but how do you get given authority? How do you get there? And your first thought might be a thought of, well, I can do this and that'll cause that. Well, that's a form of manipulation. And just so you know, manipulation has no place in any area of leadership. Leaders, I heard a quote. It was talking about Japanese companies and how Japanese companies, when there starts to be a downturn, they don't lay off their workforce. The first person that takes a pay cut is the president or CEO. And then if it keeps on, then the CEO resigns. They go to the top first because they believe there are no bad soldiers. It's the general. It's the general that's not up to par. So when we're talking about the position of authority, when you step into manipulation, I'm going to get authority by doing this and that, and it isn't genuine, then you kind of fit into that category from my perspective, right? You're a bad general at that moment. So, and you need to be removed. So, so how do you get there? How do you flow into given authority? One of the things, and there are four. One of those things is time. It takes time. It literally takes time, and you have to be so very careful with how you spend your time. That time is both time at a place and then time with people, and that's the biggest builder. If you want that to move faster, you really have to invest in people, spend time with people, and be about people. So time spent with people, and when you do that, the next thing automatically pops up, and that's trust. So time leads to trust, both time in relationship with people, and then it gets to trust. And when you have spent time at a place and you've spent time with people and you develop trust, and you're authentic, which is the third thing, throughout the entire process, and you're consistent about it, that is when people give you authority. They don't give you authority because you can speak well. They don't give you authority because you can do things well. They give you authority when they can trust you, they can trust how authentic you are and hear your heart, and you're consistent about who you are and what you're doing. If you're inconsistent all over the place and they can't trust their experience with you, then they're not going to give you the authority that you're needing to be able to do the job you're there to do. So you can have both positional and given, and that works perfect. That's what you need. But if you only have positional, then you're going to struggle a bit. If you only have given, you're going to be frustrated because you don't have position. So you want to have both. And so I'll kind of close out with this. I know we're about 11 minutes into this, and I didn't intend to go that long, but you need both. You need both. You need positional and you need given authority. And when you have both, you can move mountains. You can move mountains. Now, I even as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, well, Jesus said, with this much faith, you can move mountains. And I get that. So that may have been a bad thing to say. But with both positional and given authority, you can move a lot of dirt. Let's just put it that way. You can get a lot of things done. You can move a lot of dirt, and you'll be fulfilled, and the people around you that are engaging in the process will be fulfilled as well. So I hope this has been helpful today. I'll say this as we close. If this has been helpful, I'd love for you to subscribe. Again, we put out two per month of the podcast. And so if you're interested in this kind of content and you've got recommendations for topics and things like that, I'd love to hear them. Honestly, would love to hear them. You can leave me a comment. You can shoot me an email. That'll be in the show notes there. I also want to let you know there is a Patreon that I've set up to help support the podcast as we kind of move through, gaining some access to different technologies and stuff like that to actually make it better. So with all that said, I just want to say I would encourage you as leaders to lead well in everything you do. And if you are at a place where you have positional authority, remember, it takes time to garner that trust, but you have to be authentic and consistent about everything you do in order to get it. So when you get it, things change. So with that said, this has been Live, Lead, and In Between. Lead well.